rest of his career?
Defense. That would help. The fact of the matter is that he doesn't play much of it right now. That's the only critique that I have of his game. To be 20 years of age and to have the skill set, the basketball IQ, the poise, the swag that he has, it's incredibly impressive. I think he's a superstar in the making. I think he has an opportunity to go down as the greatest white player we've seen since Larry Bird. I think he's that special. And obviously one of the great all-time greats. There's no question about that. But I do think that you've got to produce on the defensive side of the ball, because if you give somebody the license to attack you at will, particularly with his size and abilities, that's not a good look. This is not an Allen Iverson or Steph Curry type where you're clearly undersized, and as a result, you have a defensive impediment because people can get physical with you because you're just so small and they can take advantage. That's not an excuse for Luka, because he's big enough and strong enough to be better than he is on the defensive side of the ball. So that's all about effort, and he just has to show it. That's all I have to say about him. Outside of that, I think he's fantastic.
Last question for you. As you meet aspiring journalists and media members, what's the best piece of advice that you can give any aspiring young journalist or media member who's trying to make it in this business?
Several nuggets. Number one, know what direction that you want to go in. Have an idea. And know what impediments or what roadblocks lie in wait. So many times we want things, but we have no clue what objects are in our path, what's standing in our way, and how to navigate ourselves around them, over them, or through them. You got to know these things, and you can't know that without having a clear vision about where you want to go and what you want to do and what you want to accomplish. I'm in television, but I knew I wanted to be in television when I was doing newspaper. And my number one incentive is that I knew newspapers didn't pay what television paid. But in order to get to that point, I knew that I wouldn't be able to be somebody like the great Stuart Scott or John Saunders and guys like that. I didn't have that capability to sit in front of a microphone, remain poised, smile, and more importantly, to be objective. I'm a subjective human being. I was a columnist. I wanted to editorialize, opine, give my opinion. So I was always going to have something to say. Well, how do you go about ultimately positioning yourself to accomplish that? You start out in newspapers. You work your way through the terrain. You become a beat writer in high school, then colleges, then the pros, then you become an NBA columnist, and then after that you become a general sports columnist. So what did you teach along the way? You learned how to acquire information. You were talking to people about content. You built the level of trust because everybody knows and couldn't deny you actually did this. And then once you got to that point, that facilitated a transition in the radio and then the television. And it all aligned with one another because folks on the air talking about stuff all the time, giving their opinions about stuff all the time. But what proof do they have that they gathered content? What proof do they have that they cultivated resources and made connections and nurtured those connections and sources and things of that nature? I did all of those things. So that positioned me to get to that point. It didn't happen by accident. It was my plan from the time I got into this business in 1993. It just took me damn near 20 years to execute it. But it was a plan all along. I had a plan. And that's what I would encourage everybody to do. It's not the end of the world if you don't have it, but you need to know that you need to have one and go about the business of getting it if you don't have one. Because if you don't have a plan for your future, why should any prospective employer have a plan for you?
Appreciate it.